The letter was small, folded unevenly, its edges softened as if it had been opened and closed many times before finally reaching his desk. It slipped free from a neat stack of charity mail and landed on the dark polished wood in front of Adrian Cole, a man whose name moved markets and whose signature could change cities. Outside his office window, glass towers glowed in the evening light, alive with movement and ambition, but inside, everything was still. Adrian reached to push the letter aside, already tired of requests wrapped in polite desperation, when his eyes caught the uneven crayon handwriting. Dear Santa. Please send me a dad. The words were simple, almost careless, yet they struck him harder than any accusation ever had. He frowned, reading the line again, slower this time, as if meaning might change with repetition. It didn't. His throat tightened unexpectedly. He told himself it was foolish to react this way, that it was just another letter meant for a charity campaign his company sponsored every winter. Still, his hand didn't move away. Instead, he unfolded the paper fully. The letter continued in short sentences, some misspelled, some trailing off. The child wrote about her mom working late and coming home tired. About eating dinner quietly so her mother could rest. About other kids at school being picked up by their dads, lifted onto shoulders, promised ice cream on the way home. She didn't complain. She didn't beg. She simply explained, as if Santa needed context to understand the request. She said she didn't need toys this year. She said she would share if Santa sent her a dad who didn't leave. Adrian leaned back in his chair, the leather creaking softly beneath him. The office suddenly felt too large, too empty. He glanced around at the awards on the shelves, the framed magazine covers bearing his face, the carefully curated symbols of success. None of them had ever made a sound. None of them had ever waited for him. He realized, with a quiet ache, that when he went home that night, no one would ask how his day had been. He had grown up believing loneliness was the price of greatness, that attachment was a weakness to be managed, not a need to be met. Yet here it was, staring at him in crayon, a truth he could no longer ignore. Somewhere, a child believed that a man like Santa, or anyone listening, could choose to show up and stay. Adrian lowered his gaze back to the letter, his thumb brushing over a small heart drawn at the bottom, slightly smudged. He imagined the girl hunched over a table, concentrating hard, hoping her words would be enough. For reasons he couldn't explain, his chest felt heavy, as if something long buried had shifted. He placed the letter carefully back on the desk, not with the rest of the mail, but alone, within reach. For the first time in years, Adrian Cole did not feel like the richest man in the room. He felt like someone who had just been asked the most important question of his life, and hadn't yet found the courage to answer. Mila lived in a narrow apartment above what used to be a bakery, the faded sign still clinging to the brick wall like a memory that refused to let go. The windows rattled when buses passed, and the heater only worked when it felt like it. She knew the rhythm of the place by heart, the creak of the stairs, the hum of the old refrigerator, the long silences that settled in after her mother came home from work too tired to speak. Mila had learned how to fill those silences with imagination, with drawings taped to the wall, with stories whispered to her stuffed bear at night. Her mother tried to make everything feel normal. She smiled a lot, even when her eyes looked tired. She said things like, "Maybe next month," and "We'll see," with hope stitched into every word. Mila never asked where her dad was. She had stopped asking years ago, when the answers grew quieter each time. Instead, she helped where she could, folding laundry, counting coins on the kitchen table, pretending she didn't hear her mom cry softly when she thought Mila was asleep. The letter to Santa had been written on one of those quiet nights. Mila didn't know if Santa still listened to kids her age, but she wrote anyway. It felt safer than asking out loud. She folded the paper carefully, pressing the creases down like it mattered how neatly hope was packaged, and dropped it into a red mailbox on the corner the next morning before school. Weeks passed. Life stayed the same. Then, one afternoon, there was a knock at the door. Mila froze. Her mother wiped her hands on a dish towel and opened it cautiously. A tall man stood in the hallway, his coat too expensive for the building, his expression unsure, almost nervous. He held a box of groceries like he wasn't quite sure what to do with it. He introduced himself as Adrian, said he worked with a charity, said he had read a letter meant for Santa. Mila peeked out from behind her mother's leg, clutching her stuffed bear tightly. The man's eyes met hers, and he smiled, not the practiced smile adults usually gave children, but something softer, as if he were afraid of getting it wrong. Mila felt something strange then, not excitement, not fear, but curiosity. Adrian came back again. And again. Sometimes with groceries, sometimes with books, sometimes with nothing but time. He sat at their small kitchen table, listening as Mila talked about school, about the play she was nervous about how bikes were hard to balance at first. He listened like every word mattered. Mila noticed that. Slowly, the apartment changed. Laughter began to fill the spaces that used to be quiet. Adrian learned how to make grilled cheese without burning it. Mila learned that grown-ups didn't always leave just because they could. And without anyone saying it out loud, something fragile and new began to take shape, something that felt a lot like hope learning how to stay. Spring arrived gently, almost cautiously, as if it, too, was unsure whether it was welcome. Sunlight began slipping through the narrow windows of the apartment in the mornings, warming the walls that had always felt a little too cold. Mila noticed the change in small ways, the way her mother hummed while cooking, the way laughter came easier now, the way Adrian no longer stood by the door as if he might leave at any moment. That evening, Mila sat at the kitchen table with a pencil and a fresh sheet of paper. She didn't use crayons this time. Her handwriting was steadier now, more confident, as if the words knew exactly where they wanted to go. Adrian watched from across the room, not wanting to intrude, pretending to read his phone while memorizing every small movement. When she finished, she folded the paper once and slid it toward him. He opened it slowly. Dear Adrian. I think Santa sent you by mistake. But I'm glad he did. I like when you come over. I like that you listen. I like that you don't leave fast. I don't know if you can be my dad, but I hope you can stay. The room felt impossibly quiet. Adrian swallowed hard, his vision blurring as the words sank in. He had closed billion-dollar deals without his hands shaking, yet now his fingers trembled as he held a child's letter. He knelt in front of Mila so they were eye level, searching for words that felt honest enough. I can't change the past, he said softly. And I can't promise to be perfect. But if you'll let me, I can promise to show up. Every day. Mila studied his face carefully, the way children do when they are deciding whether to trust. Then she nodded, a small, serious gesture, and stepped into his arms. Adrian held her, feeling the weight of the moment settle into his chest, not heavy but grounding, like something finally finding its place. Her mother stood by the counter, tears slipping down her face as she watched them. She had guarded her heart fiercely for years, but in that moment, she allowed herself to believe again. Not in miracles, but in choices. In people who stayed. Later that night, Adrian walked home under a sky scattered with stars. For the first time, the city didn't feel so vast. He realized that the letter to Santa hadn't asked for magic at all. It had asked for courage. And somewhere between a child's hope and a lonely man's decision, a family had begun, not because it was perfect, but because it was chosen.